What is up, guys? I'm Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the Meaning of Podcast, the only podcast where we talk about film directors and the deeper meaning within their films. RB3, we are talking about the Terminator franchise made famous by James Cameron. Starting in 1984, he created one of the most revolutionary films of all time, and that is Terminator and Terminator 2. And now we have Terminator Dark Fate in theaters.
Interesting.
Bombing.
Whoa.
Face planting.
Whoa.
Slipping off their skateboard.
Oh.
And rolling downhill.
Oh.
Into nothingness, because that is where it's going, because I believe the Terminator franchise is over. It bombed at the box office again, which I personally find to be so disappointing because I actually enjoyed this last movie. I understand why it bombed. I understand that it's not the best movie ever, but my God, it's way better than the other ones we've gotten before. Yeah. And at least it had something different to say, and I don't want to spoil it for you.
Just spoil it, man. I've already had spoil for me, like, all around.
Okay.
So just give it.
But either way, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're talking about the beginning of the Terminator franchise with the first Terminator, I believe, in 84. And now we see the ending, now in 2019, I believe to be the ending of the Terminator franchise, because it's just it can't sustain this kind of L's, too many L's in a row.
Yeah, they got to stop lying to us, man. They got to stop putting James Cameron on TV and telling us that this is Terminator 3.
Well,
they got to stop telling us that.
I kind of think it is, and I kind of think it's the perfect, like I said on Movie Talk the other day, if this is the end, at least it was kind of a good ending versus what we've gotten before.
Yeah, so I think we should start the show with the 1 through 5, and then probably do the spoiler for Dark Fate at the end, just so we give the podcast listeners.
Let's do it, man. Let's start out with the movie that did it all, and that is 1984's Terminator.
Yeah. James Cameron.
Terminator.
Yeah, exactly. Terminator. James Cameron's breakout
Cameron's breakout film, starring Linda Hamilton.
Yeah, and of course
homie
Arnold.
Who played Kyle Reese and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I gotta say, man, rewatching this movie's awesome. This movie's freaking cool.
Yeah.
This movie, I truly believe it shows you just in one film what James Cameron is capable of. And it shows just a little bit of his genius that we can see in other of his movies. But I feel like when there's a director that can create so much with a genre like a sci-fi, like James Cameron can, it's truly a marvel to witness, and we see that with the Terminator movie. And the main reason why RB3 is because one of my favorite things in all of movies, in all of genre movies, and all of sci-fi movies is present in this movie. In fact, it's probably the defining theme of the movie. And you know what that is, RB3?
What's that?
Time travel.
Yeah.
I love time travel.
Yeah.
Every time a movie brings up time travel, and I guarantee this year we're going to see 2 of movies bring up time travel, not just one.
Timestamp?
No, I'm not talking about timestamp.
Hey.
I'm not talking about what Undone with Rosa Salazar.
Don't tell me about it.
I'm not talking about Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about Terminator.
You're talking about Star Wars?
I still think Star Wars is going to have time travel, and I think it's going to be amazing. I think that's the coolest thing you can introduce in a sci-fi movie, and it's always a game changer. This movie really kind of breaks down time travel and what it is to go back in time and fix certain things. Kyle Reese goes back in time essentially to create a being. That's kind of his main mission, is to make John Connor.
Well, yeah, if you want to think of it that way, sure.
I think of it that way, as in like 2 missions: protect her and make love to her. And I'm like, I got you, man. I'm in. Let's do this thing. Send me back right now, 1984. Let's go.
Dang. It's almost like the opposite of Back to the Future, where you get sent back to not sleep with the person you're supposed to sleep with. I think time travel. I think honestly, what this movie does in terms of kind of briefly alluding to this dystopian future that we kind of have to imagine is happening off screen. For all we know, John Reese could just be this insane person.
Yeah,
but once
Kyle Reese,
I'm sorry, but son John Connor.
Yeah.
But once we see Arnold and once we see the Terminator in all of his bare ass glory, it is on and cracking. We know this dude's a killer. He kills those punks. One of them is played by Bill Paxton, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yes, it is.
So that's it's a great time. This movie feels like an independent movie from the jump, though. I think that's kind of the raw, gritty, naturalist kind of aesthetic that you see in this movie. It has an unwittingness to just go for it, you know?
That's the thing, right? Not only does James do a really good job as far as setting up this premise of time travel and of going back and protecting someone from a being in the future that's here to kill you, it's also the visual effects, the visual style that he introduces in the Terminator movies becomes a trademark for him, that he becomes one of the biggest innovators in all of Hollywood. I mean, this is the guy who famously, made CGI a thing, man. Like, if you really think about it, who is the biggest innovator in technology in Hollywood of all time? I can make an argument for George Lucas, but I can also make an argument for James Cameron, because we see that with the Avatar movies. Everything James does is to push the envelope of the line between technology and movies. He's always trying to bring that together and create something so powerful, so unique, so beautiful on screen. That's what I feel he does in every one of his movies. And he does that in this movie with practical effects. And it looks so freaking cool because you feel that it's real. And that's what James Cameron wants to do.
Well, I think moreover, when you talk about technology and how James Cameron is that innovator in technology, I think it's worth noting that it is funny that the movie that broke him out, I mean, he obviously had Predator prior to before this as well, but the movie that broke him out is essentially a movie that is about fear of technology. And I think this is the only James Cameron vehicle where we primarily see that. A lot of the times his movies represent something else. A lot of the times his movies represent technology versus, or a lot of times, a lot of his themes in this movie concern industrialism versus natural, real, biology type things. I mean, we see that with Aliens. We see that with what's the underwater movie?
The Abyss.
The Abyss, yeah. A lot of his other filmography. And Avatar, obviously, it focuses a lot on biology. I think Terminator and also Titanic, to some extent, too, both deal with the fear of technology and how that fear erodes us as individuals into this kind of distrust of it. And I think Terminator 2 offers a more optimistic take on it, where you do end up befriending the technology in it.
Exactly. It's the idea of what's the potential of technology and how it can be used to create, but also to destroy, because that's the main mission of Arnold is. He's just basically a giant destroying machine. Unless you got anything else to say, let's move on to Terminator 2, man.
Yeah, no, I just also wanted to give a shout out to Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. James Cameron has always cited that as a direct inspiration for Terminator.
Oh, nice.
So I think that's huge too.
Absolutely. And it's absolutely incredible. Terminator 2, man, is a mind-blowing movie. This one, to me, is still one of the greatest action movies of all time, if not the greatest action movie of all time, if I'm being completely honest. I rewatched this movie, and I was completely blown away by all the effects in this movie. I don't know how many cars flip in this movie, and this is 1991, but there's a lot of flipping cars. There's a chopper chasing a giant truck. There's trucks flipping over. There's a motorcycle scene in the middle of the freeway in LA. This movie just kicks ass. But besides all that, RB3, what I find to be interesting is that when people think of Terminator and they think of T2, they think of Arnold being the guy who kicks all the ass. But my God, dude, Linda Hamilton is kind of the protagonist of this movie. Yeah, she's kind of the driving vehicle.
She was the protagonist of the first one.
She was.
But I think this one she fully embraces something completely different than the first one.
But I feel like her motivation and her decisions in this movie are the defining factor. And there's a line in this movie that I really feel like people ignore, especially people nowadays that say don't make Terminator political and don't make it about women. That's what people are literally saying about Terminator, even though have you not seen a Terminator movie? They're all about literally the main character is a woman in every Terminator movie, because they think Arnold is like, oh, Arnold's he's the guy who's kicking all the ass. And I'm like, oh, there's a line in this movie where Linda Hamilton says, it's always men like you when she's talking to the doctor, the scientist who creates Skynet. It's always men like you who create destruction, who create the atom bomb, who create Skynet. And it's always women like me who have to face the repercussions. That's a line from the movie, and it's such a powerful line because it's this idea of technology is a tool, and what man chooses to do with it is to destroy. That's the first thing it goes to when it comes to Skynet, versus what happens if someone has the same power, but it's a woman. What kind of grace, what kind of potential does a tool like technology have in the hands of a woman? And I find that to be so interesting and so just like mind-blowing that James Cameron introduces that, to think that if Linda Hamilton had the same opportunities as this Skynet guy or had the same brain that he does, would she create the same thing? Would it be the same thing in a female's hands, in woman's hands? And it's that idea of like the grace of a woman can push past the sins of a man, right? And I just find that to be so fascinating. And it's very, I mean, ahead of its time, if hashtag feminist, whatever people want to say. But I find that conversation to be so interesting because James Cameron introduces that in 1991.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of like, wow, she makes really good points.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks to be a woman just being stepped on by the man her whole life.
Yeah, and I think this movie, you know, and I think James Cameron talked about it recently in an interview, if I'm not mistaken, where he talks about how in the first movie, you know, Linda Hamilton's character was the damsel of distress who has to step up to the plate. In this movie, it's the exact opposite.
Yep.
Like in this movie, she shows up ripped. She shows up. I think she even, I think he talked about when he approached Linda Hamilton with the role, he was like, well, what's one thing that we can do to make, you know, to make you want to come back to this? And she said, make her crazy. Make her crazy. And we see that from the very beginning. Yeah, and we see that from the very beginning. We see that influence. We see how broken she is by all this institution. By the way, all of the people who are her prison guards, by the way, are men too. So, we see a lot
the
of
guy
that.
who like licks her face.
Yeah, exactly. And we see how broken and disturbed her environment is while she's inside of a mental institution. So when that whole breakout scene happens, it's like a moment of catharsis for the audience. By the way, I do want to say this movie, for being made in 1991, I think holds up infinitely better than most movies that are made today. I mean,
I will go to the grave. 100% agree, and it's 100% because of one thing, RB3, and I will keep saying this till the day I die: practical freaking effects. When you see a car flip in a movie and it's a real car, you can tell. When you see a digital CGI car flip in a movie, you can tell. The reason why is because when it comes to CG and practical, humans, people who watch movies know what certain things are like. So in a movie like a Star Trek or like a Star Wars, you can get away with all the spaceship stuff and it feels real because I don't know what that spaceship looks like in real life, but I know what a car feels like, how a car moves, how much a car weighs. So seeing a car literally flip and it's a CGI car, I'm just like so taken out of a movie. All the practical effects in this movie are incredible and they hold up so well, man.
Well, it does have a lot of CGI in this movie.
No, but that's
too.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what James Cameron is such a genius because he does the perfect blend between CG and practical. Like rewatching this movie, I was like, that's how you do it. Where you make a CGI character because I don't know what Liquid Metal Man looks like. Right. I don't know what a T-1000 looks like. So I can use the crazy CGI effects and be scared and be like, oh my God, that's a monster. It's coming after me. Right. But at the same time, if I know what he can do to a car, that kind of it connects my mind to something physical that I know. And I say, I know how much a car weighs. I know how that feels like. But I don't know how strong a T-1000 is. So when you see him do what he does, you're like, oh, that's how powerful he is. Yeah. That's scary.
Yeah, and I think you know, this movie it was a big innovation leap for ILM at the time.
Yep. This is one of the best. What was it? The completed CGI, first completed CGI,
like liquid, kind of moving liquid, something like that, some weird thing like that. But this movie innovated a lot in that front. I also think I think another strong aspect of this movie is its subversion from the original film too. Again, we see this time the Terminator is the good guy, and we see the flip side there. But we also see a flip side in the quote unquote authority figure too, right? In the first movie, the cops were the good guys. The cops were the people that Linda Hamilton runs to, and where Arnie ends up shooting up the entire place. But then we see in this one, the main character, the T-1000, the liquid metal, he often embodies the form of a law enforcement officer chasing them. So it goes really, really deep into a lot of things. There's a whole sequence where they're set on the Mexican, or near, or if not on the Mexican border.
It's on the Mexican border,
yeah. So they have a lot of moments that touch really specific major issues that they kind of mildly address, like in the background, or kind of mention, but they don't actually go the full route and like actually going and explaining a lot of what these meanings and these social contexts are for. But I think it's cool that the movie always kind of found a place to insert that in there.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the movie is kind of about humanity and what humanity
coming together.
Yeah,
what coming together can do.
But also even something like a T-800 becoming more human. There's a line in the movie where John Connor asks him. He says, why is it that you keep, asking me about crying and about all these simple things? Do you not know these things? And he says, I know what I'm built for, and that's to kill. But eventually, my computer CPU unit will learn more and more. So the more I spend time with humans, the more I learn, till eventually, what he's trying to say is I'll become human. And it's this idea of this machine becoming human, where at the start of the film, the T-800 has this mission-oriented relationship with John Connor, and by the end of the movie, he's almost like a father figure to John Connor and has like an actual connection to him. So it's that idea of what humanity can do even to the worst thing, which is a machine created to destroy, and how the heart of a child, literally, can change the heart of a machine and soften the heart of a machine. And it's that idea of humans coming together, and that's why the Skynet guy helps them and proves that, you might be right. I would have killed everyone. I would have made this atom bomb, like she says. But here I am, changing my mind, changing my perspective, choosing humanity over my own self-interest. And that's the kind of theme going on throughout the movie.
Yeah, no, I think that's really dope. And I think we see, what is the character's name? Miles, I think his name is.
John Connor?
No, not John Connor, but the scientist character.
Oh, yeah. I forget, but yeah.
I think his name is Miles or something like that.
Yeah,
but,
Miles Dyson.
Miles Dyson, that's right.
Yeah.
When we look at a character like Miles Dyson and how in this movie he has that change of heart too, how everybody in this movie kind of ultimately has a flip and has a change of heart and has a new perspective on how they want to approach this, because when it comes down to a dire situation like the end of the world, a lot of these people are a lot smarter than just giving in and folding to their egotism or whatever, as opposed to maybe the first movie, where the first movie had a lot of especially for the police officers, they were not prepared for when the Terminator came in there and started shooting up the place. Now these people have seen and experienced the damage that these robots can cause, and they got to fight it. So,
absolutely. Yeah, and it's that idea too of like, what does the end of the world potential do to a human mind, and how Linda Hamilton is almost driven to insanity, as you said, but it's because of her responsibility and of her knowledge of the entire world's going to end, but I'm the only one who can stop it, kind of thing, right? I mean, we see that even in Watchmen now. I don't know if you're
of course
caught up.
Of course.
We see that idea of like, I'm the only one who can save the world because I'm the only one who knows how to save it. And that elevation of herself gets taken down a notch when she realizes her responsibility to her son and to be a mother at the same time as being a hero, and how that kind of, what comes first, being a mother or a hero? And she chooses being a mother, right? Because she chooses the right thing to do, which is to save Miles and to let him live. Because she could have just killed him, which is, what anyone else would have done, right? I don't know. I don't know. Were you would have shot him?
Yeah, for sure. Some fucked up shit.
Anything else to see on T2, man? I honestly think this. First of all, this movie cost a ton of money. This movie made a lot of money.
It was the biggest budget movie out of this time.
Exactly. This movie's just, it blows my mind. It holds up so well. It's one of the best action movies of all time, if not the best. It's one of the best sequels of all time, if not the best. Again, James Cameron is just dropping, like, just shooting like curry threes from like half court, man.
That's JC, man, not Jesus Christ. James Cameron.
You keep saying that, man. Anyway, guys, we're gonna cut to break because after this, we're gonna talk about the Terminator sequels. So we'll see how that conversation goes. But either way, guys, stay tuned and stick around after the break.
This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh. With the 4/5 divide you in half. You getting at me equals a club laugh. You do the math, take you out the equation.
The following is a clip from me and Andres' debate on the new Martin Scorsese article, available on our YouTube channel, First Cut.
Technology and film are always going to be connected. I mean, obviously, you can make entire books and documentaries about this, about the idea how technology always is going to influence film. And this is since the beginning of film, right?
Right.
Since the beginning of cameras and film and the ideas of going to theaters, the conception of it will always go hand in hand with technology. During the 70s, you didn't have this kind of technology, though. So I can counter you by saying if the 70s had this kind of technology, they'd be making Marvel movies too. Because they would say, I can do story and I can do epic. I can do both. I can do Lawrence of Arabia on crack with like Avengers Endgame. Like I can do both. A story of a character and I can make an epic at the same time. It'll cost me less money. These are opportunities that technology provide filmmakers. And I feel like
I don't know what that has to do with character though. Like what does that have to do with characters?
I'm saying they can do both.
Yeah.
You can make an action spectacle movie.
I love Black Panther.
That will make you cry.
Bro, listen. No, stop. Wait. Stop.
Have you ever cried?
Stop. I love Black Panther. I love that movie. I love that movie. You're not going to tell me that any kind of character work in Black Panther is anything comparable to anything that you see in Taxi Driver, anything that you see in like,
but again,
anything,
you're missing
anything
the point.
What's your? I don't understand the point. The point is that there's more technology.
No, the point is, if I'm making a movie like Black Panther, and I have the opportunity to make it an epic story that people can actually feel enthralled with, and I have the budget to do that, and I have the technology to do that, of course it's not going to have the same character because there's limitations as far as runtime in a movie.
Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
What's up, guys? We're back talking about the Terminator franchise. Now, it has come to that time, RB3. We talk about the Terminator sequels. So, it all started in 2003, I believe?
Yeah, 12 years later.
Terminator Rise of the Machines. What do you think about this movie, RB3? This is 12 years after the Terminator 2. Yeah? Yeah.
Oh man, I hate to say it, and it actually is kind of funny because this might actually be the best out of the sequels.
I highly disagree with you on that.
Well, I haven't seen Dark Fate, but I'm talking about like.
No, I'm saying, but I'm talking about the three. I'm talking about between Genesis, Salvation, and Rise of the Machines.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We'll fight about it later, but go ahead.
Well, I don't know. So here's the thing, like. I think this movie. The
action in this is probably the best.
The action,
I would say it's pretty cool.
This turns I think a more heady science fiction. I think the first Terminator was a lot more heady, a lot more true science fiction. The second one's more of an action sci-fi. This one turns into a straight action movie with like sci-fi-ish elements. But probably the most notable thing in this movie is that the ending of this movie shows the world end, and that's something you don't see in a lot of these type of movies. That's something you don't see in any major movies, really, besides like Cabin in the Woods or something like that.
Where what do you mean? Where
Skynet's taking over. I mean, we see the Skynet. We see the beginnings of how the Skynet thing ultimately ends up working out.
I think there's some movies that do that.
Yeah, there's some movies that do that.
People take the L and just say, hey, whatever.
Yeah.
Rogue One does that. That's a recent movie.
Yeah, but they still won at the end of the day.
Everyone dies.
But they won at the end of the day.
John Connor lives.
Yeah, but the place is about to, literally is going to the place that they're trying to prevent it from going. So I think it's just funny that it's kind of one of those time travel situations where the timeline isn't inevitable. Like we are going to end up with the same exact thing.
It's the idea of destiny. And is your future inevitable, or can you change your future?
Right. And also a big point is that this movie was Arnold Schwarzenegger was paid $29.25 million for this movie.
Damn.
His contract was apparently 33 pages long. And this was right before he became the governor. So he was probably just cashing his last big check to head in the office.
Check.
Yeah. This was the highest at the time. And I think he also insisted on having 20% of the grosses and stuff like that too.
Damn.
So it's crazy.
He's got a hell of an agent.
But listen, when you gotta think about it too, nobody James Cameron's not coming back. Edward Furlong didn't come back because he had a substance abuse issue during this time. So
the cast was kind of, Claire Danes was kind of the
Yeah, Claire Danes was beginning to break out. But, I
Yeah.
mean, this is 03, and I
There
have no
isn't
idea.
really anyone famous in this.
Yeah, besides Arnie.
Besides
so-
Arnie, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, they had to get it done. So
My issue with Rise of the Machines is that of the 3 movies, full disclosure, full disclosure, and I know that's my foot that you're stepping on.
my bad, bro. Your foot is way over on
I know,
my side.
I know,
My bad.
man. I like to
I've been
stretch my
kicking-
legs.
I've
I'm a
been
tall
kicking
man.
it- I've been kicking it all night, dog.
No, man, I'm
Ah,
a tall,
man.
bro.
Oh,
I'm
shit,
playing, I'm
no,
tiny.
you-
My problem with Rise of the Machines compared to something like a Salvation or compared to something like a Genesis, and full disclosure, RB3, I haven't seen Genesis.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I could talk about that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
My problem with this one is that we saw Terminator 1, we saw Terminator 2. Terminator 3 is so goofy. And that's the word I can best use to describe it. Goofy.
Yeah.
It's just so goofy.
It's departure.
It feels like Independence Day Resurgence.
Yeah.
Where everything's a giant joke. I mean, it's a big action movie, but everyone's like, "Oh my god, what's crazy? This is crazy!" Like, "Oh my god!" Like the reactions to the action feel so over the top and so cheesy and so goofy. Where the Terminator's cracking jokes the entire movie, and it just you feel disconnected because you're like, "Oh, that wasn't what I got in T2. That wasn't what I got in T1."
Yeah.
Like there was like literally like maybe 2 tiny brief comedic moments in T2, maybe like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But when
There's
you
funny
get
moments in that movie.
but when Teeth in Rise of the Machines, it feels like goofy. It's just so over the top and so silly and so goofy. And the Terminator is just like putting on like the little star sunglasses and just doing, it just felt very disconnected from the rest of the franchise and very, very much from the rest of the tone as well. So I think that's my biggest takeaway. There's cool action scenes in it. And the story isn't the worst in the world. But it just feels so goofy, man. Such
Yeah.
a silly movie that
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's to me, it's not the worst, but it's not the best.
I honestly, I haven't seen Genesis, but to me, this would be the worst.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
jeez, okay,
this is the worst one.
Interesting. Okay,
I don't care for it
cool.
because I'm the one guy. I think I talked to someone else the other day who kind of agreed with me, but I'm the one guy, bro. I don't think Salvation's that bad. I don't think Salvation's that bad.
Is that a hot take?
I guess it's a hot take. It's people think it's the worst one. I think it's kind of cool. I mean, it's got some cool stuff. It's not the best movie ever, but it's got some really cool scenes. It's got some cool action elements.
Yeah.
The story isn't that bad.
Well, to me, okay. So for me, I think this problem suffers from the same problem that the prequel suffered from. Great story and great idea to follow this angle of the universe, just not well executed. I mean, McG was not the director for this movie. I think the cinematography choice was interesting, having it like that mostly grayscale looking kind of vibe.
Yeah,
but
I liked that. The look was cool.
It was a cool look. It was an interesting look, but I think this movie was so fundamentally trying so hard to be different. And I like that movies, I like when movies are different. I like when movies explore different themes, especially within the same franchise. This movie was going out of its way to the point where they had to make John Connor, John Connor or Kyle Reese, who was half robot or half.
That's Sam Worthington.
Yeah, or whatever his character, yeah. What was the fucking point? Like, I don't understand what was the point of that.
The point was he was this is their first testing. He was the first.
Yeah.
The making of cybernetic mixed with human was kind of the first idea that Skynet had.
Right, but why? I think to me it just should have been focused on the war itself. I think that's the movie that people wanted to see from Terminator Salvation. I mean, I remember even going into it as a kid and talking to my buddy about it. The movie we want to see is the machines versus John Connor as an adult, as
like
a man,
a war movie,
straight war movie, and see what the resolution of that conflict. The sad part about this Terminator franchise is they spend so much time traveling to the past to fix the problems in the past. Go to the future and go to where we see the solution in that world.
But my friend said the same thing, and I countered him by saying, "What is the solution?" Because is the destruction of humanity inevitable? Are humans inevitably gonna lose? Because if they're facing off against a computer system that's designed to destroy humanity, who says that the finale is going to be them winning?
Yeah.
It might be Skynet wins in the end.
Yeah.
Is that the movie you would want to see?
I mean, I think that sounds like a better movie than a lot of the stories that we've seen thus far.
Okay.
I mean, the one thing I do kind of regret before, like not doing before this podcast, was checking out the Sarah Connor Chronicles, because I think that a lot of people say that show is a great kind of lore builder for the society. I saw a couple episodes of
I haven't seen it either.
When it was,
But either way, shout out to Summer Glow or Glow.
Yeah,
I think
but
she's
I
great.
saw a couple episodes of it when it was on TV. But what I found was really interesting about that is that it shows the in-between time between the movie and the movies and the fictional reality that they're painting for the future. There's so much story to mine from that period, and there's so much story to mine beyond the period of John Connor and all this stuff. I think you could have something really, really fascinating.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's a great point. I think the biggest issue people had with this movie was the character of John Connor himself, Christian Bale, was cool, but he was also kind of flat. If that's, I mean, Christian Bale's never flat.
The behind the scenes
It's
definitely
incredible.
isn't flat.
It's so good. It's so good.
What are you doing by the light?
Yeah.
What does he say? Oh, good for you. That's great. Classic.
Yeah. He's that breakdown is going down in history.
Yeah,
One of the best Hollywood breakdowns ever.
For sure.
But I just feel like he's just a really angry military guy, and I don't know if that's what you want. I mean, that's what it showed in T2, and that's what it showed in the previous Terminator movies, that he's kind of like this straight-laced general military mastermind. But is that a compelling character to follow? And I don't know if it is. And I know that for the most of this movie, we follow Kyle Reese. That's the character we follow the most. But I feel like that's probably the biggest disconnector that people had with this movie, and that's the biggest factor why people really didn't care for it.
Sure.
And I feel like the lore might have been a little much, too. Which leads us into Genesis RB3. This is a movie that you love. Is that right? You told me you...
No, that's definitely not true. Now, what I will say, when I first saw it, I did think it was a lot better than I
Really?
Probably.
Interesting.
I
think this is the lowest rated one.
IMDb. Oh man,
Tomatoes.
I'm looking at it. So here's why I like Terminator Genesis when I first saw it. I
Dang,
think
bro.
that.
I mean, what you looking up right now?
No, I'm trying to pull up one of our old episodes.
Oh man.
I
That's not what I saw. I picked over.
Oh man, what did you see?
I saw something that I shouldn't have seen.
Oh boy. So I think overall, what's fascinating about Genesis is that it does the same. It was doing the same thing that the other 2015 movies were doing, like in Mad Max Fury Road and Force Awakens and Creed, and that it's a long gap sequel that pretty much erases the predecessors and just makes it more directly about more of a sequel to something that came before it. And I thought this movie was interesting because it did this revisionist history with the original Terminator 2, where it kind of showed a different angle to it. I mean, it's like one of those classic Back to the Future things where we see the first movie from a different angle.
Okay.
Yeah. So it did that, and it played with that, and I thought that was really fun and enjoyable. But beyond that but beyond those elements and beyond like the first half of it, well, I think the first half is actually kind of a solid movie. It just kind of falls apart and doesn't really like go anywhere. The personalities between like
Emilia Clarke and Jai Courtney.
Yeah, Jai Courtney wasn't really there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it did.
Jason Clarke too.
Jason Clarke, but he was another choice for John Connor. By the way, how many John Connors are we gonna have?
A lot.
I feel like literally
we got a lot of John Connors.
Like
man.
there's literally so many John Connors. Now I think I don't know, man. I don't think I liked this movie when I first saw it. Like I said, I don't think it really holds any water. Visiting it now, so yeah.
I heard it was just a bit. I haven't seen it, so
yeah.
I heard it was a bit silly and it's just a bit disorienting and kind of confusing.
I think if you're just going to it as somebody who likes Terminator 2 and just want to see, these are some of the moments from Terminator 2, but just from a different angle. I think that's the fun part of the movie, and that's really a lot of the first half of the movie. But I think beyond that, it's not. The whatever other plot that it had is not really that great.
Interesting. Who directed that?
No idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Terminator Genesis.
Yeah, and as you look that up, hold up.
It was directed by Alan Taylor, same brother who did
No way.
the fucking worst Thor movie.
Yeah, he
This
also
movie-
did Hellboy, right?
Oh yeah, he did. Oh, another flop. By the way, no word did it say Terminator Genesis has a higher IMDb score than Terminator 3.
Ooh, there
Yeah,
you go.
so-
Alrighty, it's time, RB3.
Yeah,
Give me your attention, because I'm about to break it down for you.
give it to me.
I'm about to give it to you. Here's my review of Terminator Dark Fate.
Oh, spoiler.
This is the sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I can't lie, RB3. I like this movie, man. I did. I really enjoyed it. I feel like the decision it made in the beginning of the film to show you something, it does something that a lot of people were really upset about. But I thought that decision was a fascinating conversation and a fascinating question to have as far as what happens to John Connor, right? And what decisions lead up to Linda Hamilton's character, Sarah Connor, going forward after that decision, after that happens. I don't know if you want me to spoil anything. For
No,
you.
spoil it,
You
bro.
don't wanna
I've already
spoil
had
it?
it. For one, I've already had spoiled. For two, I really have no interest in seeing it.
So you should see it.
Okay.
John Connor dies in the beginning of the movie. You know that.
Yeah.
The reason why people hate it is because it's John Connor. The reason why I'm okay with it is that idea of if Skynet really is determined to kill John Connor, how many times is it going to keep trying the same thing until eventually it does? You see what I'm saying? Like that's such a fascinating question as far as like, is John Connor's death inevitable? Is his termination inevitable? Because that's what keeps happening as far as Skynet. That's Skynet's decision. They want to kill John Connor. So I thought that was an interesting point, an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
What I like about this movie, RB3, is it talks about destiny and predestination and what humanity is leading towards, and is, Judgment Day inevitable no matter what, regardless of who creates it, because of the decisions that we make in our current timeline. And if that's the case, with the future that doesn't have a John Connor, who fills that void? And the movie answers that with the character of Natalia Reyes, Dani, her name is, in the movie. She fills that role as the John Connor in the future, not because necessarily there's something special about her, but because leadership qualities in humanity is always there. And regardless of what happens to humanity, there's always going to be people who choose to take it upon themselves to make the right decision, who choose to take it upon themselves to unite people and not pull them apart. And that's what the character of Dani does in the future, where she has this ability with other people to bring them together and to fill that void that John Connor leaves. And I find that to be the most fascinating thing, because it's this idea of how leadership can be passed down to different generations and to different groups of people. And it's how it's not necessarily just one type of person, a military mastermind white dude. It can be a little Latina girl, and how that little Latina girl has the same qualities as John Connor, and she fills that void, and she becomes the John Connor of the future, her own version, in order to stop this new threat of Legion. It's not Skynet anymore, it's Legion. And I also like that because I thought the idea of Legion, obviously being from the Bible, the idea of the demons are many, and how it's this demonic entity that's hunting down humans. And it's that analogy of how humans are facing off with their own demons. And I thought that was like a fascinating little thing that's in the writing. But what really makes it cool about this movie is obviously Mackenzie Davis delivers. She kicks ass in this movie, and I think she's so cool as an action star and as a compelling character who really knows how to portray those feelings in very limited scenes. And I think that's what makes this movie so compelling, is that she brings that emotion to her character and that connection to the character of Dani, the protagonist in the movie. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's a giant action movie, and you kind of feel a little bit tired of certain action scenes, and I kind of wish they pulled back on the action scenes, but I know they kind of have to because it's a Terminator movie. But if they held back a little bit with the action scenes and gave me a little bit more with those character interactions with the character of Mackenzie Davis's Grace, her name is in the movie, and Natalia Reyes's Dani, I think that would have been a little bit cooler. But again, it goes back to the same message as T2, which is, what happens to humanity, and is humanity Is humanity's end inevitable through their decisions, or can new decisions come up in order to stop their sins, in order to stop their previous decisions? The idea of generational change, how one generation can correct the mistakes of their past. And that's something we see in the world nowadays. We literally just had an entire conversation about Parasite and about the idea of people taking it upon themselves to change something and to not just be complacent with what everything is going on. That's what I liked about this movie, RB3. And obviously, Gabriel Luna, man, is such a... I will never get over it. The T-1000, agree with me, or I don't know if you agree with me or not, is one of the coolest villains in movie history because of the designs that James Cameron created. And I feel like he brings that back with Gabriel Luna and the idea of this creature that's chasing you, who has the ability to blend its skin, to blend in, to manipulate people, to have special powers that can go beyond themselves. And I think Gabriel Luna fills that gap and fills that void so well as being that intimidating creature that's hunting you. So, I don't know. That's why I enjoy Dark Fate, man. And I really do feel like, I know you don't care, but check it out, man. Spend $15 and check it out.
Well, I won't spend any money on it, but I'll use my AMC A-list for sure.
There you go. Use your AMC A-list.
Here's the question I have, because what keeps Deadpool from being a great movie to where it's at in my mind as a good movie is the fact that it has no directorial style. I don't think Tim Miller is kind of invisible throughout that entire movie. Is there any sort of style or directorial presence that you see in this movie, or is it just all CGI?
That's a good question. I feel like there is, but to be fair, to be honest, it's more due to the acting and more due to the story and the writing that I feel like there is. The writing is really strong. The acting is really strong. The directing is okay. I mean, it's not a super signature style, but it's enough to get the job done. And I feel like the actors and the writing kind of carries the movie a little bit more than Tim does. Nothing against him, like his action scenes still deliver, but I feel like the best parts of this movie aren't the action CGI scenes. They're just not. They're simply not. The best parts of this movie are Mackenzie Davis and Natalia Reyes having a conversation, or Linda Hamilton having a conversation with Danny. Those are the best moments in this movie. Yeah. And the idea of the future of humanity not being connected to one vision, one face, one idea. John Connor is our future, the end. Not necessarily. Our future can be another face, a new idea, a new version, a new look. That to me is cool because it's this idea of leadership coming together, and that's from the writing. So yeah, that's Tim Miller's. Yeah, man. I mean, he still has Deadpool, which made a ton of money, but this is an L for him, in my opinion.
Oh, like a straight L.
Well, I mean, he bombed. I mean, that's how W's and L's are wins by box office, man. At the end of the day,
but
like,
for the
it doesn't matter how many people like this movie.
But for the art, is it a W?
Yes. If I had to lean one way, I would lean towards yes.
Yeah. So, but you would say like overall, like it's a good movie, but just underseen because this doesn't have because of the franchise reputation.
100%. This is one of those things where I said it on Movie Talk the other day, but the conversation around Terminator sequels is just so sour, so bitter. People don't trust it. They fool me once, man. Like, this is the thing where it's like, I know what I'm going to get and it's going to be crap. Like, that's that predetermined view where it's like, why would I waste money to see L after L after L? It's going to be another L. I know it because it's probability, right? Probability of a Terminator being good, a Terminator sequel being good, it's like super low. So why would I risk it with $20? Like, I'm not going to risk it.
Exactly.
So I think that's why it bombed, man. I really don't. And also the trailer wasn't great. That trailer wasn't great, man. And you said it on Movie Talk, but that wasn't a good trailer.
Yeah, no.
But I do feel like people are having this weird anti-Terminator because all of a sudden there's women now, and I'm like, bro, there's been women since literally the first two movies are starring women.
Yeah, the TV show is called the Sarah
Connor Chronicles.
Yeah.
That is dumb. And I was like, well, it's because Latinos are ruining everything. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The fact that this movie is partially set in Mexico, it's partially in Spanish, makes it better. It makes it different. You know why?
Right.
Because there isn't a lot of movies that have Latinos. There isn't a lot of movies that have Spanish in them, and they're Hollywood productions, right? There's Spanish movies, there's Mexican movies, but a feeling where there is the white people and there is Latino people and they're coming together, that's something I haven't seen in a movie probably ever, honestly. And that's something to me that does stand out and that should be celebrated because, like I said in my review, my tweet review that people flipped out, like, people need to realize, like, Latinos are part of this world, are part of this culture just as much as white people are. So let's integrate them and let's have this coming together and this idea that we can overcome our fears and our enemies through the humanity coming together. And that's why I like the character of Natalia Reyes and her kind of taking it upon herself to be her own Terminator and to be her own line of defense. That's such a good message, man. Like, you can say that to a kid nowadays, and that's a good message to have in a movie. Be your own Terminator. Defend yourself. Stand up for yourself. Bring people together, because that's the best defense you can have against an enemy or against your demons or a demon. That, to me, is like the coolest thing. So that's why I like Dark Fate, man.
Yeah,
That's my review.
And I think it is kind of cool. Salute to James Cameron. I mean, he gave Robert Rodriguez and Alita Battle Angel a
100%.
chance in terms of Latino or Latinx representation.
That's very true. And Rosa Salazar, Diego Boneta, Natalia Reyes. These are, come on, man. Let's keep Gabriel Luna. Like, come on, let's go. Like, let's get these people in front of cameras. Let's put them on screen. And you're right. I'm personally giving a shout out to James Cameron simply because of that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he had anything to do with the casting, but the fact that he gave people opportunities that gave that casting, that to me is already a victory.
Well, Edward Furlong is half Mexican too, so he's always been for supporting the cause.
There you go, man.
Sure.
Either way, man. Alita, Battle Angel, a big budget movie with crazy action scenes that kind of flopped.
Yeah.
Terminator, Dark Fate, crazy action.
Terminator's flopping worse than Alita
True.
is. And
True.
I think Alita has a very
agree.
passionate fan base.
That's very true.
Actually will keep it going. I think they will do another sequel to Alita.
Okay, that's very true. But what I'm saying is, I think these are two James Cameron movies produced by James Cameron in 2019 that are actually pretty good.
Actually pretty good.
And that people should actually pay money to see.
Yeah.
Go see Alita Battle Angel, rent it if you need to rent it, and go see Terminator Dark Fate just to make up your own decision. And again, like I told my mom, she was like, "What? This is still a crazy big action movie," and you still roll your eyes a few times at like, "Come on, let's get to the story," because I do feel like action takes too much in this movie, and that's probably my biggest downfall in this movie is like, it's just too much. Let's get to the story, because I feel like too much action.
And this is R-rated too, right?
It's R-rated.
Yeah, so I'm a little confused why they decided to invest $185 million into an R-rated movie.
Honestly?
When the Terminator Genesis was PG-13, right?
It was.
And that had a smaller budget.
I don't know.
That's literally true. Yeah. Why did it go the opposite way? I don't understand. All right, whatever. That's not my problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where studios will always want to see, after Terminator 2, studios always want to see big action scenes in the Terminator movies, which I get, because T2 has some of the best action scenes ever, but at the same time, it's like, we don't need to, man. We don't need to have so much action. That's probably my biggest downfall in this movie is like, come on, pull it back. Let's just have a chill moment where, characters can interact and talk, because that's the best parts of the movie, in my opinion.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's my review, and honestly, I recommend you guys check it out. And if you haven't seen it now, go check it out over the weekend. Obviously, I spoiled the crap out of the movie already, so
It's okay. I already asked spoiled for me.
so there's that. I think people need to get over certain aspects of the movie that it's just not really like. Was John Connor ever really that cool of a character?
I mean, he is the main character in all of the movies.
Is he though?
Yeah.
Is he though? Go back and watch T1 and T2. Is he?
Yeah, not T1. He wasn't even born in T1.
No, but what I'm saying is like T2, I mean, sure, he's the kid that kind of is the heart of the movie, but I feel like Linda Hamilton's character is the driving factor in that movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, guys, that concludes our episode of the Terminator franchise. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure and check out our other reviews, our other videos up on our channel on First Cut.
Yes.
And you can follow us. I'm on Twitter at Squad Leader Race.
And I'm on Instagram and Twitter at DirectorRB3.
And I'm also on Instagram at Squad Leader Race, so make sure you check me out there. I post 2 times a year, man.
Hey,
Those are my
it's a good
2
time.
pictures.
Yeah.
That's it. Either way, guys, that's For the Meaning of the Podcast. I'm Ace.
This is RB3.
We are peacing out, guys. Peace out.